everyone. Good morning. Happy Friday. Welcome to our first episode of The Huddle. And for those tuning in for the first time in the Thinking into Greatness community, The Huddle is where we sit down and we chat with other successful, highly effective people from the world of sport. And my hope and intent is to really study success and to see their journey to greatness and hopefully share with you one little nugget or multiple nuggets of information that can really take you to your next level of greatness. So wanted to again welcome all of you. Today, I'm super enthused to have on my first guest. I'll share a little bit about him. My guest today is Mackenzie Ferguson. Mackenzie Ferguson and I go way back. Again, I feel like I could probably spend, the whole time just sharing all about his accomplishments and his achievements, but I'll try to give the Coles notes and then we'll pull out some of this stuff as he shares. So first off, I'd just like to welcome you, Mackenzie, for joining us today on The Huddle.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here and hopefully people can get something away from this.
Yeah. So just to give you some background into Mackenzie, Mackenzie was the 2014 Spectra Award. Now, for those in the London area, that is given to the male and female athlete who best combines not only excellence in the classroom, but excellence in athletics and community service as well. So that's kind of like like we talk about the all-around person. Then Mackenzie moved on to the University of Western Ontario, where he studied kinesiology from 2014 to 2018. While there, Mackenzie was also part of a Yates Cup Championship football team in 2017 and 2018. In 2017, he was part of a UTEC Bowl winning team. 2018, part of a Mitchell Bowl, and those are both national semifinals. In 2017, Mackenzie was a key member of the national championship Western, which was, I think, for the first time since 1994. Is that correct, Mackenzie?
Absolutely, yeah. 23 years.
23 years. And then in 2018 was again a key member of a team that went right back to the Vanier Cup as well. In 2018 as well, Mackenzie won a very prestigious award. He was the recipient of the Russ Jackson Award winner. And again, this was a combination of not only excellence as an athlete, but excellence as an academic and excellence in his citizenship. So again, Mackenzie has performed not only at the high school level, but in the university level as well. Now, on to his next phase of his life. He is currently studying medicine at U of T, amongst a whole bunch of other wonderful things that I definitely want to hear more about as we chat. So thank you again, Mackenzie, for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks again for having me.
Yeah, no worries. So Mackenzie, the first question that I'd love to hear from you is, what made you fall in love with sport? Was there this moment or experience that really, just made you kind of?
I don't think there's really anything in particular. I definitely love all sports from a young age. Like, my mom has like VHS videos of me on the ground, like playing basketball, shooting like a ball into like a pot, crawling around and before I could even walk. And I just remember playing like backyard football with my dad and brother. So it's definitely something my parents introduced to me from a very young age. Just, being active, enjoying sports and being active with my friends in the community and my brother. And so it's just something that's always been a huge part of my life. Elementary school, I participated in every sport possible. And then high school, I did football, wrestling, and track, and then played football in the summer. So it just seems like there wasn't one specific moment, but just a lifelong a journey. And it's still continuing through to this day for sure.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I appreciate you sharing. So it sounds like a lot of your initial interest into sport was definitely introduced, and your parents, which are amazing, by the way, introduced it to you and got you and your brother Alex sort of appreciating the whole idea about moving and being active.
Mhm.
And then it sort of morphed into where it became a sort of social element as well, where you started doing it, with your friends, playing it with your friends and just different games.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, it definitely really started off from just neighborhood kids playing basketball on the street and getting together playing football on the street, and just a really social aspect of things. And then obviously as I got older, it transitioned to be a lot more like competitive and more of a competition kind of thing. And then now kind of later in my life, it's going through that transition to, being healthy and just wanting to be, a healthy person and gain all of the physical as well as mental benefits of exercising regularly.
Yeah, no, it's really great that you talked about that. And one thing that really came up as you were sharing, and one of the things I've always admired about you is you value being an all-around athlete. And as again, coming from a background of coaching for 20 years, it seems like there's this big push now to specialize really early, right? You're 10 years old, right? You're going to the NHL. That's the only path. But what I would love to hear from you is what made you sort of be that sort of compete in all these different sports? And for those that aren't familiar with Mackenzie, we're talking about, I mean, he was a provincial athlete in wrestling and track and field and football. So I would love to hear kind of what was the catalyst to sort of be an all-around athlete?
I think for me, the biggest thing was just, I guess I like variety. And I just, from a young age, loved a variety of different sports. So, if I could have played more sports in high school, I would have. Like, I would have loved to have played hockey. I would have loved to have played on the basketball team. Like, I would have loved to do all these different sports just because I enjoyed competing and enjoyed, variety and just challenging myself in different ways. Unfortunately, I did have to kind of limit it to my three kind of top ones. But really, for me, it came from just an enjoyment and a passion for activities and challenge in a bunch of different manners. And I know a lot of people are kind of shifting towards that specialization, but there is a lot of research that shows for kids playing multiple different sports is actually more beneficial. And not only that, I think they're going to enjoy it more. They're not going to burn out and start hating the sport that they're playing. And I think it's really important to keep sports for kids enjoyable and fun and not make them hate what they're doing, right? It's really for fun, not competition at a young age. And I think that's important to keep in mind. And it's funny you bring that up. I was watching 30 for 30 last night on Bo Jackson, and just how amazing of an athlete he was at literally anything that he did, and how much he really just enjoyed challenging himself and doing multiple different things. So yeah, I think for me, it was really just all about enjoying a variety of different things and really pushing myself to the limit and seeing how good I could do in multiple different aspects.
Yeah, no, I love that. And what I'm really hearing from you, and it's interesting that now you're heading, diving deeper into the medical field. And it's interesting how you talked about sort of that holistic approach, right, to wellness, that it's not just the physical, it's really about, what can we do to maximize our mental well-being, our social well-being, our spiritual well-being, and all those things, right? Because at the end of the day, that is what makes a happy, healthy, and wealthy person, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I find with myself, like, if I'm not exercising regularly, I actually
Yeah.
notice it. And I'm like, man, like, I just don't feel as good. I'm not in as good of a mood. Like, I'm not as motivated. And I'm just like, okay, like, just going out and going for a run just makes such a big difference in my life. And I'm sure that's similar for a lot of other people. And yeah, it's funny you mentioned the importance of like variety, because if you just only run, well, you're going to get probably osteoarthritis in your knees. If you only hop on the bike, well, your bone density isn't going to be as strong. So I think it's important to have this variety and kind of do everything in moderation and realistically just try to be as active as possible and do whatever that you can, because it is going to help in a lot of ways.
Yeah, no, I love that. And what a great reminder, Mackenzie, especially with everything going on. And it's just, that's how we, it's our responsibility to be well and to make sure that we're thriving, right? Okay, that's definitely. Here's a question, and again, I know you are by far one of the most humble athletes. I still think back to one of the things you taught me about interviewing back when you were a high school athlete about things. But when did you realize that hey, I'm pretty good at this sport thing? Like, was there a moment where you kind of realize either, you're all around athletes or even with football that you specialized in, right? In university, was there that moment where you kind of realize, hey, like, I'm pretty good at this. I might want to explore this more.
Yeah, I mean, like growing up, I always knew I was, pretty fast kid on the playground and pretty good at different sports. I remember being like in grade 4 and playing football at recess and being like the first pick when I'm playing with like grade 7 and 8s. And I guess back then I knew I was like pretty good, but it's hard to really know how you compare to a broader scale. So, I mean, really for me for football, it wasn't until probably like grade 11 when I made like a highlight tape for football, and like I figured, oh, I'll send it out to some university coaches, and I didn't really expect much. And Western was like very interested. They're like, oh, this is awesome. Like, we're really interested in you. And I was like, okay, like this is exciting. Like I can definitely have a future in this in university. And then Western really seemed to be the only school interested. And then you'll probably remember that summer going into grade 12, there was like a football game where I had 5 interceptions in one half. And then all of a sudden, there's scouts from Queens, Toronto, McMaster, like a lot more scouts started showing interest in me. And that's when I was like, okay, like I guess I am, like, it validated my feelings of how good I was, and really showed me that I do have the abilities and the potential to be very successful at the next level.
Yeah, no, and that's a great story. It's interesting that you share that story of that game and of summer football. And I very much remember that. Again, I had coached you for years, right? I coached you from when you were 14 years old, and I knew that you were special. And all of a sudden, Western was interested. They knew about you because our head coach at the time was a Western coach at the time. And I remember hearing from a few CIS coaches after that saying, like the 500, all of a sudden people were wide open to that. So it's interesting how one moment and all the preparation that goes in that you've done just showed up in that one moment and opened up so many more opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's it's a funny saying. Football, you always have to be ready, and someone's gonna be injured, and something like that can happen at any point in time. And it's just all about putting in that preparation so that when your chance comes, you're ready to go. And I think that applies to a lot of aspects in life. I think, you see it a lot at Western and like really high level programs where it can be difficult to maintain the training and the effort when you know that you're not going to be either dressing or even playing in the game. But it's really important to keep that high intensity in your training so that when that opportunity does come, because it can come at any point, you are ready.
Yeah, no, and that's such a great point. Like, I love that you're sharing about preparation, right? And I agree, preparation is key. You have to put in the reps and sets in order to be prepared for that one opportunity. Because, I mean, vice versa, if you put in the reps, you're going to be prepared. Where if you don't, then you're not. So what I'd love to know is, here you go, you go to Western as a blue chip recruit. Again, I know I'm a little biased, but you were by far the best football player in the city that year. And, you had to prepare because you didn't go into Western as a starter, right? And so how did you work through that of going from, this amazing 3-sport provincial athlete at the high school level, best football player in the area, to where all of a sudden you're not getting the playing time that you're used to? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how did you sort of make that transition to, working your way through that?
Yeah, I think it's important to set expectations. And, I came to that training camp with an open mindset and did as best as I could, and then kind of reevaluated after training camp. I think it's important to be realistic with yourself. And, it's not like I was upset at the coaches because I wasn't playing or anything like that. I knew that I wasn't at the level that I needed to help the team. I knew if I was out on the field, I wasn't going to be good enough to help our team, because that's just how good we were. I could have gone to other schools and started right away, but I made the choice to go to Western knowing it was going to be very difficult to play in my first year. And so I kind of had that expectation, and I wanted to go to Western to give me the opportunity to win a national championship and win multiple provincial championships, knowing full well that that opportunity to dress and start your first year probably isn't there. So I think having that expectation, understanding that it was me that needed to get better to be able to be on the field and go out there and contribute to the team. And that really motivated me through that entire kind of first year to get to the point, where I set the goal for my second year that I would dress, and I dressed for a couple of games. And then I set the goal for my third year that I would be playing. And then third, fourth, fifth year, I was a starter. So it was kind of a natural progression, and it's about setting those goals and those expectations, I think, with yourself.
Oh, I love that. You're speaking my language. I love the idea of goals. The one thing that I really heard from you, though, and in there was obviously the goals. You've always been very goal oriented, like you've set those goals. But what I loved about what you shared was you put yourself in an environment to thrive. Like you knew that, okay, right now, I'm not as prepared as I'm not as prepared as some of the guys ahead of me, but by surrounding yourself with other great athletes, right? Other great academics, that you wanted to be around greatness. You didn't want to go to some average program and be the man on, a 1-7 football team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I specifically remember like having a good group of friends who were in the same position as me, and we really pushed each other to try and get to where we needed to be. I remember sitting down with one of my best friends, Andrew Thurston, in first year. We were in the same position, both not dressing, and we said to each other, we're going to work our butts off so that next season we're on the field playing. And I think that core group of guys, that kind of the year that came in ahead of me, the year that was behind me, like those are the core guys who really were able to accomplish that Vanier Cup run in 2017. And I think it was a special group of guys, and we really worked together, right from the onset on just getting better every single day. And when you get better every single day over 4 years, you get to be pretty good.
Yes, I love that. Just love that. Get better every day, right? Push yourself and growth. Okay. So I'm sure people can pick up on some of the things that have helped you along the way in journey of greatness, right? Like success isn't an accident, right? Success is a system. What would you say was the one quality that separated you as an athlete? And just to give everyone some context here, one of the conversations that I used to have with coaches as Mackenzie was, it's very easy to get focused on what we don't have. Okay. Now, Mackenzie, by far, again, great heart, great work ethic. But the measurables, right? I mean, you went into Western as, 5'8", I think 155 pounds at the time. And I remember some CIS coaches who will remain nameless saying to me, is he big enough? Is he da-da-da-da? But you still, you were on a national championship team. You were the best student athlete person in the country. What was it that separated you? Because in some degrees, some of the measurables weren't there, that just physically aren't there. But what separated you that allowed you to thrive despite?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of aspects that go into being really successful for sure. But one thing that comes to mind is just persistence. And it's easy to kind of give up on things when they're not going great. I look back to my first and second year, not really playing that much, and it'd be easy to give up. But it's really about that persistence and staying true to your goals and staying on that track. And I think back to some of the best players that I played with, and those guys came out every single day to practice, ready to play. It didn't matter if it was a Monday afternoon practice or a Saturday game day. They came out with the same intensity, and they're always looking to get better. And I feel like I also had that kind of persistence where I was going to do whatever it took to be successful. And that was kind of like in every aspect, like it's 10 o'clock at night. You just got back from watching film. You've been at the stadium since 3:30, you want to go to bed, but you have to study, right? It's that persistence that's going to allow you to kind of be successful in all areas of your life, and that kind of mental fortitude that's necessary to overcome those challenges. So I think it was just me being really persistent on staying the same course and not giving up on myself throughout those years, and just working at getting better at every single day. If you pick one little thing to get better at, then over the season you can really improve a lot. And you were naming off the accolades. One of my favorite ones that doesn't really get much recognition because people don't see it as that significant would be in 2016. So after my third year, I was recognized as the most improved player for Western. And most people are like, oh, it's most improved, that's kind of cool. But for me, that signifies there's 100 guys on the team who are working their butts off every single day throughout the year to get better. And that means that I was working harder than every single one of those guys and was able to improve the most. And when you have 100 very hardworking individuals, to be recognized as the top is, it's a testament to my persistence and how hard I was working.
Yeah, no, and I love it, right? And you said it about 10 times, but I love, and that's what I want anyone that's watching this is to hear what Mackenzie's talked about is persistence, right? It's are you willing to do the work when things aren't going your way, right? Mackenzie talked about like first and second year, there wasn't a lot of playing time, but he still did the work. He was still persistent in doing the things of what a Vanier Cup champion is willing to do, right? Like he was doing the work. And by simply being persistent and doing the work, he found those opportunities to get better and better and better. And that is something that has always been one of your best qualities, Mackenzie, is your ability to do the work. So I wanted to acknowledge you for that. Like it's always been one of your superpowers, we'll call it.
Appreciate it.
So I want to ask you a sort of different question here. So you're transitioning into medicine now and looking at that next stage of life. Is there one thing that you used to believe that you no longer do? So was there something that you really thought, yeah, is there this belief, this idea that you really used to think, oh yeah, that's true, and then all of a sudden now you're like, no.
That's a great question. I got to think about that. One thing that pops to mind initially was I just think back to when I was throughout high school and university and how competitive I was, and that's what really allowed me to be so successful. And now I'm kind of in the realm of sport and exercise. I'm shifting away from that competition and more going towards, as I mentioned earlier, just being a healthy individual. And so I think before, when I was training, it was like everything has to be perfect. I always have to be 110%, and kind of had that mindset. And that's important when you're a high level athlete. But I still have that kind of competitive nature, but fine tuning it a bit. Now to being like, if I'm going for a run, I don't have to be running my best pace ever. If I'm going for a bike ride, I don't have to be going at my fastest speed the whole time, right? And just sometimes that makes it easier to get out there and stay active when you don't have that really high expectation of yourself. And so that's one thing that I found now is, you don't always have to be at your best and you don't always have to be perfect. Just doing something is better than nothing. And that's one thing I found with kind of sport and exercise, but I think it applies to a lot of other aspects of our lives that, a lot of times just getting out and doing something is better than sitting doing nothing.
Yeah, no, and you know what, that's so good. And again, I love the ability for you to really dissect that. And it's a great reminder on the power of your attitude is that, you're in this transition where your goals have changed. Before it used to be, how can I prepare myself to be the best student athlete I can be? But now it's becoming, how do I become the best, human being I can be? How do I become the best medical student, right? The most well, and just that, and just having that attitude and that ability to just say, I'm just going to do it, right? Like, I'm not going to sit here and gather more information and like, I'm going to do it because I know at the end of the day, it's going to make me feel better and it's going to, help me. So that's great. Love that. Okay. Oh, so many good things. I feel like I could have this conversation forever. So in your last couple years, you were one of the key leaders on those Western teams, right? On teams that were winning and playing for national championships. To you, what qualities make a great leader? And, were they kind of skills that, you tried to embody as a leader?
Yeah, I think it's there's definitely multiple aspects to being a great leader. And I think one of the great things that we had on those kind of championship football teams was a multitude of leaders. Even if it
Mm,
was, we had a lot of guys who were younger, but they acted as leaders. And you don't have to be a fourth or fifth year guy to act as a leader. Just leading by example every day at practice makes a huge impact on the team. And we had a lot of guys who were leaders, but were, leaders in different ways. Some guys were, quiet, just led by example. And then some guys were more vocal and kind of, in your face about being a leader. And that's the nice thing about team sports, and especially football, when you have so many guys, is that when you have all those different kind of leaders, guys are going to respond differently and better to certain types. And so I think we were really able to capture that. One thing that I think we did really well is it was actually initiated by Dave Mackey, who's a fullback now for the BC Lions. Just signed a contract extension yesterday, so he's gonna be there for a little bit longer. But he and then I was part of it, and a number of other leaders on the team kind of started a mentorship program. A lot working with the younger players, but the whole team, and really created a more competitive but inclusive environment within the team. It's tough when you have so many guys in the football team, working together to create that environment, but really working with that mentorship program allowed us to create the optimal environment for success. And it was very evident those couple of years. And so I think, being a great leader is all about, understanding who you're working with and understanding your team and what people are going to respond to. And, sometimes you have to be vocal and more a bit, demanding. And sometimes you can take a step back and let your team lead themselves. And so I think it's really about being flexible and being able to adapt to different situations and, amplify different traits when it's necessary. I think is a big aspect of it.
that's so good.
Leadership, yeah, it's we talk a lot about it in med school now about how to be a great leader with a team and in the community and working in healthcare teams, and a lot of it's very similar to sports and very comparable, but it's a very complex topic. And but when you have a great team and it clicks, it's something special.
Yeah, again, so good. And thank you for giving us some insight into, that 2017 team and that 20, like there was something different. Like I remember sitting in the stands at Tim Hortons on that game, and there's just something different about that team. Like you just knew that. I remember sitting there with some of your other coaches from high school, and just, yeah, it just it didn't matter what Laval did. It just we're gonna find a way. And it's a testament to your leadership and your ability to galvanize 110 people, 110 players, all your coaches towards that one common vision, right? Of the Vanier Cup. That's so
Yeah.
good.
I mean, there's so many aspects that go into it, like I said. And, we really had a much better off season that year in terms of our training program and creating competition in the off season to keep players motivated. And I think a lot of it even goes back to 2016 when we lost the Yates Cup to Laurier in a huge comeback fashion. As soon as that game was done, pretty much all the guys on the team who were coming back was like, that's never going to happen again. And I think that really sparked a fire in us and motivated us. And it was something special to see our response to that. And I think that played a huge role in how successful we were. I think after that game, we won something like 23 straight games. And it was just a really, cohesive and motivated response to failure. Which is something that's important in all aspects of life. When you experience failure, you can either learn from it or just kind of run away from it. And I think we embraced it, learned from it, and made sure that didn't happen again.
That's so good. And again, for those watching, I want you to hear that, because If we've ever needed a reminder, anything more, listen, things will happen from time to time, right? Like challenges, obstacles, right? You'll get, proverbially punched in the face. But it's in those moments, like, how do you respond? And you just heard Mackenzie. They used it as a learning opportunity. They didn't dwell on what happened. They used it as a catalyst to put some fire in the belly, and they worked their arses off to prepare to make sure that wasn't going to happen again. They got focused on, no, the national championship is coming home next season, and that's it. So that's so good. So thank you for sharing. I love that you should. I love that. How do you respond? That's so great.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, you definitely learn a lot from success, but you can learn just as much or more from failure for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, great reminder for everyone. What is, Mackenzie, one piece of advice that you've gotten from, someone, either, it can be anyone, that, there's a lot going on right now, right? Like it's an interesting time in human history. There's a lot going on. What piece of advice would you give to someone who is maybe at a crossroads? Maybe it's their health, maybe it's their relationships, maybe it's a career, maybe it's school, maybe it's a lifestyle, and who really wants to make a change, but just, kind of doesn't know, should I do it? Should I not? What would you have to say? What piece of advice would you give them?
I think there's kind of a lot of things to think about. I kind of went through that after my 4th year. I wasn't really sure what exactly I wanted to do with my life. And so I knew I really loved anatomy. And so I was like, I'm going to pursue that. And, I thought maybe I want to do research, maybe I want to do teaching, maybe I want to do med school. Those are all things that I kind of floated. So I took a path that allowed me to do a master's degree, and where I got to experience all those different aspects, and then really saw that medicine was the thing I wanted to do, and I wanted to pursue that. And so I think the moral of that story is to, trust your gut, follow your heart, go where you're going to be happy, and it'll lead to new opportunities. I knew after 4th year, I loved anatomy. That was where my heart was telling me to go. I went there, and I knew that it would lead to new opportunities. So I would say just really trust your gut. I think deep down, what you want, and then so follow your passion, and then that'll kind of open up new opportunities. And at least it did very successfully for me. Like I think if one thing I've heard before is if you're really struggling over a decision, I'm not going to lie, I'm not a great guy at making decisions. So one thing I've heard is that if you say, I have 2 decisions to make, I'm going to flip a coin, heads is this, tails is this. When you flip the coin, you'll know what you want when the coin's in the air. You know what you want it to land on. And so really just try to follow your passion, because if you're doing something that you love, it'll make you happy, and I think your life will be more enjoyable.
Yeah, no, that's, oh, so good. And what I really heard from you is what do you want, right? Like, what do you love to do?
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting that it sounds so cliche, because everyone always talks about, follow your passion, do what you love. But when you allow that to guide you, and you're open to just new opportunities, right? That's when they come to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to acknowledge you, because we had talked about medical school back in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And you just having that sort of open, like, I love anatomy. What are other opportunities are there? So I'm going to pursue my master's. And you did that for a few years, right? Got your master's, and then you realize that, no, I'm going to go the med. But now because you're pursuing what you love.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people, I wanted to make sure I was going into medicine for the right reason. I think it's important that you know why you want to do something, and what's going to bring you happiness and joy in life. And so exactly like you said, it's, exploring different opportunities, and really just seeing what makes you the happiest.
Yeah, that's great. So the last question I have for you, and sort of putting you on the spot here.
That's all right.
What is your vision for 2021? Like, do you have a goal that you would like to achieve in 2021?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one thing that I found after retiring from sports is that before it was really easy to set goals. It's like, okay, my goal is to be a starter, win the Vanier Cup. It's easy to get motivated and go and train every day. And I found after I was done, it was a bit difficult to get motivated to be working out as frequently and as often. So I kind of decided that I was going to set some goals for myself. So I think that that's really going to help me exercising more and staying more active. So this upcoming summer, as long as the pandemic permits, I want to do my first triathlon. So I've set that goal for myself. And so I find that's much more motivating for me to get active and to have that goal to work towards. So I'm pushing towards that in terms of fitness and activity. And in terms of career wise, I really want to be able to, COVID's kind of put a damper on it, but hopefully with the vaccine rollout, we'll be able to get more experiences. So for school, I really want to explore a bunch of different avenues that I might find interesting in terms of future specialties. And so I really want to just gain a really broad experience in a lot of different medical specialties and hopefully find out, maybe narrow it down to a top 5 that I really want to focus in on and enjoy, but keep my opportunities broad and just gain experience in the entire medical field because I have plenty of time to make a decision. So I just really want to experience it all.
Yeah, no, and again, so many good things there, right? That idea of having a goal, right? And being open that your goals will change, right? So you talked about creating a new health goal, right? And doing the triathlon, whether it's continue to upgrade your skills in the medical field in different areas. And what I would really encourage everyone to do, like listening to Mackenzie there, it's that growth. And when you pursue and once you're open to growth and accepting new ideas, that is what unlocks greatness. So first and foremost, Mackenzie, I from the bottom of my heart, I just wanted to thank you for being our first guest on the huddle. And I wanted to acknowledge you for not only being a great athlete, a great student, but even being a greater human being. You are a testament to the power of sport and how the principles and the fundamentals that we learn there and how they can apply to all aspects of your life. So I really wanted to acknowledge you and again share with you how proud I am of seeing the person and the man that you are.
I really appreciate it. And thank you again for having me on. And I can't thank you enough for all the help you've given me over the years.
Yeah. Well, definitely, folks. So again, if you have any questions, again, feel free, let me know, right? Send me a message. Let me know what resonated with you. Like, what Mackenzie gave you a lot of little nuggets of information that you can apply to your life. So I really encourage you to, take something and move into action like you talked about. So I look forward to chatting with you again. Have a great rest of your Friday, everyone.